What up, world? It's Thursday. You already know what time it is. Another episode of Rage Reviews. Let's just get into it, bro. Do me a favor. Go ahead, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the things that you know you're supposed to be doing. Anyway, we on YouTube now. What are you doing? Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's your boy JusRzd. Man. Right now we're reviewing X-Men 97. I've been wanting to string together other reviews, but I ain't really had the time. But like I said, I don't really care about that. We gonna pick up soon. Sooner than later. Episode 8. All hell breaks loose in episode 8. Spoiler warning. It's the only one you get. Spoiler warning. We're gonna talk about this episode. All hell breaks loose in episode 8. The episode starts out, we see Cable outside of the X-Mansion shooting. Just kind of doing like a target practice, shooting bottles. We see Scott inside the mansion just watching him. Jean comes in to talk to him. She's like, you haven't talked to him yet? And he's just like, well, just trying to figure things out. And they just kind of have a heart-to-heart in that moment. We low-key kind of find out why Bishop wasn't with him. It looks like they got separated in the time stream. And so Cable ended up in the future actually alone, which is interesting. But explains why Bishop didn't come back with Cable. We move from that heartfelt scene between Jean and Scott, just discussing Cable and just discussing his feelings, just having to abandon his son, and then realizing that Cable this whole time has actually been his son and he didn't even know. They end up in one of the war rooms in the X-Mansion, and they're discussing what they need to do moving forward and how to deal with Bastion and how to counteract what he's already put in place and how to deal with this big looming threat that they just discovered with the new Sentinels and Bastion and all that. And they throwing digs and jabs at each other, Cyclops and Wolverine, and then Cyclops and Cable. And then in the middle of them arguing, a news report comes on, and Bastion is now leaked that Professor Xavier is still alive and that he's with the Shi'ar Empire. So, of course, that's a huge bomb being dropped on all the humans of Earth. So now we have protesters pulling up to the X-Mansion once that news gets out to the public, because they're just like, wait, what is going on? Y'all lied to us and said that he wasn't there. So it's a group of protesters. It's a group of protesters outside of the X-Mansion at this point. And the team kind of splits up in different areas because Cable has a lead on one of Bastion's hideouts during this time period. So the Summers, Cable, Jean, and Cyclops head off in that direction. Turns out that it's not actually a hideout. It's actually his childhood home. Then we got Sunspot. And by his childhood home, I mean Bastion's. It's actually Bastion's childhood home. It's not actually a hideout for him. Then we got Sunspot and Jubilee. They're still with Sunspot's mom. And just dealing with all of their shenanigans. With her trying to hide the fact that he's a mutant. And just kind of talking a little crazy to Jubilee and about the X-Men and about mutants and stuff like that. So Jubilee kind of bucks back a little bit, but then they end up leaving the little function, and Jubilee and Roberto end up going shopping. And then you have the rest of the team still at the X-Mansion. Rogue still recuperating from being knocked out by the new Sentinel. Got Nightcrawler back at the crib, back at the X-Mansion with Wolverine and Morph, and Beast is still in the lab trying to figure out how to find out if any, trying to find out how many, if any, new Sentinels there are that may have gone undiscovered. And so he's running his tests, and while he's down there, the news reporter lady shows up and comes down there and just chops it up with him. So everybody else everybody's kind of like in their own little world, in their own little realm. They cut to Bastion, and we see the UN lady, the lady from the UN. She pulls up at his hideout, and apparently this whole time she was working with Sinister and Bastion. And the first thing she says is, "You should have told us about Genosha, or you should have warned us about Genosha." And he was like, "Well, I kind of did," and just kind of starts laying the groundworks for just pretty much laying out everything that he plans to do and that he planned to do, and going forward how he's going to move. So he shows pretty much the lady from the UN all his plans on how he's trying to, on one, how he creates the new Sentinels, and two, his plans on what he plans on doing using the new Sentinels. And so she just gets this huge bomb dropped on her. He's taking real live people and dropping them in this vat that allows the nanites to infiltrate their body and turn them into new Sentinels. Then he wipes their memory and puts them back into the world. So they don't even, the people that are becoming these new Sentinels don't even realize that they are Sentinels until they have an interaction with a mutant, and all of a sudden now their Sentinel powers activate. And the UN lady, the lady from the UN is just completely disgusted by the whole thing. She felt bad that Magneto's pretty much his prisoner, and like his his prize prisoner at this point. So he has like this meeting of like villainy, because there's a whole bunch of different people on different screens. We got an Easter egg for Dr. Doom. He was there. Baron Zemo was there, and a few other shadowy figures on these screens as he lays out details going forward on how he's going to move and maneuver. Then we cut to the Summers again, and they realize that they're in the childhood home of Bastion, and Bastion's mother's actually sitting there waiting for them, and allows them to explore the house. They go in Bastion's room and they're looking at the artwork and the decorations, and then she comes up in the room while they're in the room, and she's like, well, this is the last one he drew. He calls it his masterpiece, and it just shows pretty much master mode in the middle and just the destruction of like all mutants and the enslavement, like death and destruction and enslavement of all mutants. And as soon as she allows him to see this, she transforms into one of the new Sentinels. So not only does he have a bunch, not only is he changing a bunch of people without their consent, and wiping their memory, but he also did this to his mama. And I'm just like, man, to your mama, dog? You did this to your mama, my G? You got to go. You did this to your mama? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So then they switch back to Roberto and, well, technically they switch back to Beast in the X-Mansion. And as soon as he starts the process to see, he's waiting for the computer to run the numbers to see how many new Sentinels Bastion has unleashed. And he starts to get some of the numbers back. He starts to see like they're everywhere at this point. And as soon as he goes to warn the team, turns out the news reporter lady that's in the lab with him is a new Sentinel. She stops him from warning the team and pretty much throws him through like 3 levels of the X-Mansion until he winds up in the living room. And then she starts attacking Wolverine and Nightcrawler and Morph, and just pretty much whooping their tail. I ain't even gonna hold you. She knocked Nightcrawler she knocked Morph into Nightcrawler and knocked them through a wall, and ended up knocking them into a bookshelf, and then some swords fell. And I was just like, ooh. Nightcrawler. Anybody who knows Nightcrawler knows when Nightcrawler gets some swords, it's finna be up. So, then it cuts to Sunspot and Jubilee. They're in the mall, and Jubilee's trying on clothes. She was like, "Oh, you about to buy me this fit? I like this one." She goes back in to change or whatever. The butler starts acting odd, and so Roberto's like, "Hey, man, give us some privacy." Turns out the butler is a new Sentinel. Like, God, dog, this man Bastion infiltrated the whole squad at different locations. Like, what are we doing? This dude is going crazy. And so, Jubilee and Sunspot start running. They make it out of the store that they were in. Start running through the mall. And then Jubilee randomly gets tackled by another new Sentinel that was just a random person. And she was just like, maybe I should stay away from malls, because if anybody knows how the original animated series, X-Men the animated series starts, it starts with Jubilee being attacked by a Sentinel in a mall. So the fact that now she's getting attacked by a new Sentinel in the mall, she might just want to fall off or fall back from the malls because they not good for her. It's just not. It's not. They're not really working for her. But anyway, so everybody's being attacked by Sentinels. We cut back to the Summers. They're still in the neighborhood, in Bastion's old neighborhood where he grew up at, and turns out Bastion turned the entire town into new Sentinels. So now they are having to fight for their lives through the entire town. And I just want to make this quick aside. Kudos to X-Men 97 for showcasing each of the mutants in their abilities and their fighting very thoroughly. I love the fact Jean didn't pass out through this whole episode. Like, she really held her own. She was protecting her husband and her stepson, clone son. I don't really know what relation that would be. She really was protecting them and was fighting and throwing stuff and had them encased, taking attacks while psychically shielding them, and didn't pass out. Kudos to y'all for doing that. But yeah, so they pretty much they try to fly away in the X-Jet. Doesn't end up working because they get attacked by more of them. And this whole time is jumping between each group of X-Men. It's jumping between the Summers, Jubilee, and Roberto, and the X-Mansion. So the whole time we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So the Summers, they fly away in the X-Jet. They get attacked. And they were just like, you know what? We're going to go to the back. And Cable's like, well, what's in the back? These jokers jump out of the plane as it's being destroyed and pulled down by the new Sentinels in a Porsche. Land on the ground and just start driving away. The Sentinels try to steer them in a way where they'll be trapped underground. But Cable and Scott end up burrowing with their powers and their weapons, end up burrowing a hole out of the mountain, and they end up making it out of the mountain. But they're still getting chased by the new Sentinels and still being overwhelmed at this point. But they're trying their best to fight back. Jubilee and Roberto, same thing. They're trying their best to fight back. Jubilee's running at this point. She's on the roof of the mall. And she's just like, man, everybody else can fly except for me. Then she tried it. She tried to use her little firework powers to see if she could fly. And her powers turned around and looked at her like, man. Like, you know we don't do this. And so she fell. So she fell. And Roberto ended up catching her because he's been working in the danger room as he revealed to her on how to fly. And so he was able to catch her as she fell, and they were able to get away. They actually end up making it back to his mom, and he's like, Mom, these dudes are trying to kill us. And the Sentinels come in and they realize that they're in a room full of humans, and they're like, once they realize that, they say, hey, we don't kill mutants. We just, I forgot the line that they said. He said, we don't kill mutants. We just restrain them or whatever. We just want to make sure that they're safe. And so Roberto and Jubilee know that they're trying to kill them. And so Roberto's mom's just like, because he came in there fully in his full powers, so everybody knows he's a mutant at this point, and she was trying to keep that under wraps. So at this point, she's just like, just obey the nice men. And so they end up taking captive Jubilee and Roberto and putting anti-mutant collars, or the power dampening collars, around their neck, and end up walking them out the building. The whole time this is going on, the X-Mansion, the new Sentinels are trying to attack Rogue as she's resting and recovering, still knocked out from the previous fight. And like I said, I knew when some swords came out, Nightcrawler was gonna get busy. And man, did he get busy. He had 2 swords in his hand, and then he had 1 on his tail, and was going ham. Him and Wolverine was going crazy. So him and Wolverine going crazy, cutting up the different Sentinels. They're healing and putting themselves back together. But the Wolverine and Nightcrawler still cutting them up to the point where Nightcrawler's like, look, we got to get him away from Rogue. So he starts stabbing and bamping, teleporting people away as he's stabbing them. So that sequence was actually pretty dope. I actually like that. Like I said, Nightcrawler's my favorite X-Men. So, bruh, to see him go to work in this episode was actually really dope. So yeah, man, they end up going through all of that, and then you see Bastion. He gets a call from Sinister saying that the lady from the UN freed Magneto. So he goes back to the base, and while he's back at the base, of course, Sinister captured the lady from the UN, so he strings her up and makes her his new prisoner. And just pretty much is just saying, yeah, you might have thrown a wrench into my plans, but at the same time, I've set so much in place that it's not even going to matter at this point. And then they cut to Magneto, the master of magnetism in all his glory, at the North Pole. Gets there and does one of the dopest things I've ever seen Magneto do. He says enough and shows you why he's the master of magnetism, and pretty much uses his power to send like a worldwide EMP and shut all power in all the Sentinels down. And that's pretty much how that episode comes to a conclusion, and how everybody survives is he pretty much shuts down all the Sentinels with that move. And obviously I've never been more hyped see Magneto flex his powers. He's an Omega level mutant for a reason, bro. Like, Magneto said enough, and just everything shut down. And we got to see cameos from Silver Samurai, Omega Red, who was one of my favorite villains, and even the animated Spider-Man from the 90s. We got to see that cameo. Phenomenal. Round of applause. Round of applause. Phenomenal episode. Then right at the end of the episode, something crashes into, you see something entering the atmosphere, and it crashes into the X-Mansion, and Wolverine pulls up ready to scrap, like, yo, who else wants some work? And it's a spaceship, and the spaceship opens. There's a person in there with a weird helmet. He takes the weird helmet off. It's Professor Xavier. And it ends with him saying, psychically, to me, my X-Men. And bruh, when I tell you I was hyped at the end of this episode, this episode was so freaking fire. From the cameos being amazing, to the freaking fights and the setups and the story, and just the villain revealing his plan, them finding more about the villain and finding out more about his backstory, just seeing how everything came together, and just seeing, bro, I felt like a kid again, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. I just felt like a big kid just sitting back and watching all of this stuff unfold, everybody getting to flex their powers, Nightcrawler having his scene, Wolverine going ham, the Summers doing their thing. That was cute. I'm just happy Jean didn't pass out. You know what I mean? Kudos. Magneto flexing the master of magnetism. Like, come on, dog. This episode, 10 out of freaking 10 is my rating for this episode. Cause chef's kiss. Like, they did they thug this. They did they thug this on this joint, bro. Like, round of applause, man. Y'all in y'all bag. Only thing is, this is only the first episode of a 3-part series finale. Like, this is only the first episode. We still got 2 more episodes before the end of the season. What else can y'all do towards the end of the season? Like, y'all did all this episode 7, episode 8. Where are we gonna go next? Like, I'm very interested to see how this develops, how it ends. Bro, this episode was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Like, I have no other words. So let me know in the comments below if I'm tripping or if you rocking with it. Let me know your thoughts on the episode. Like I said, I felt like a big kid. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to share the video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, man. We, like I said, we trying to turn up the reviews and keep them coming. Hey, this has been my review of X-Men 97 episode 8. I'm locked in. Well, I've been locked in since the beginning of the season, but I'm even more locked in after episode 8. It's free show to the show free. Let's get it.